Hey ladies and gentlemen, Wolf Crier here, and welcome to another Diablo 3 discussion video. Now I initially planned on putting this out on Friday, but I've had a cold, so bear with me guys. Trying to get over this cold and be back to pumping out more videos, including build guides, that sort of thing, as well as these discussion videos and updates on patch 2.6.1. So as I said, this is a discussion video, so I want you filling up that comment section below with your thoughts on what we're talking about tonight. And tonight we are talking about patch 2.6.1. What are your overall thoughts on these buffs? And do you think that we need more? Because, wait for it, there is more buffs coming. We'll get to that in a little bit. And where do you think this leaves the LON builds for Diablo 3? Because currently, in my opinion, if these buffs go live and if there is not a buff to the LON set itself, LON builds are dead. Now this might be a good thing or not. I mean, there are definitely some very cool LON builds that currently do not fit into any type of meta with sets. So the LON set was designed to actually make other builds viable when a class's sets weren't buffing those skills, or at least adequately. So where does this leave the LON set? The Legacy of Nightmares, is it dead? I definitely think that unless there are buffs coming to that set, now maybe this is a good time to work in the fact that maybe Primal Ancients should add more of a buff to the damage bonus and that defensive bonus that LON brings. That's a good idea. Somebody did bring it up. A few people brought it up during the time that Primal Ancients were coming out. So now might be a good time to actually address that. Or is Blizzard just going to shove that off to the side? We're going to have to wait and see. Like I said, there are some people worried about LON Bomb build for the Crusader, a few other LON builds for Demon Hunter, even Monk with the LTK build. Sun Wuko's definitely is a more powerful damage-wise build with that LTK. So is LON even useful anymore? Are we going to have any use whatsoever? I want to know what you guys think down below. Make sure you let me know on that. And another thing that I wanted to talk about is there are more buffs coming to this patch, ladies and gentlemen. At least that is according to Diablo game designer Don Vu, as he posted on one of the Barbarian threads for the PTR patches and all the feedback and that sort of thing. What he posted was, we will be looking to increase numbers on many sets across all of the classes for the next PTR patch. And according to Mr. Don Vu, this PTR patch should be coming the week of 9/11, the week of September 11th, probably on that Tuesday or Wednesday, in which they will be introducing even more buffs. Now, he does specifically call out a person by the name of Procon, who was actually very involved in this thread, and his suggestions are pretty much in the ballpark of what they are going to offer the Barbarian, which is pretty drastic, at least for Barb. I do not know how this all translates to other classes, but let's take a look at what Procon posted on this thread, the actual post that Don Vu is referring to in his post. And Procon put that they should buff IK to its rightful place as a set. 1200 to 1600% is a good starting point, with Berserker, all runes added at 6-piece, or at least Striding Giant and Thrives on Chaos. He also put that buff Wastes and Skull Grasp to their rightful place at 3500% and plus 500% for that Skull Grasp. And he thinks that they are good starting points for testing. Now, most of the Barbarian community does agree with these numbers. Now, buff Might of the Earth set and GOG to its rightful place at 4,100% increased damage and 350 for GOG. And they think that those are good starting points. And Raycore to 2,000% per stack. Remember, the Raycore set stacks up to 5 times. So that would be a 10,000% damage increase. That is absolutely insane numbers. And yet, to put Barbarian where it should be, and there are several other classes as well, Monk, Demon Hunter, I mean, those classes are not up to where Wizard and Necromancer are still the top 2, as well as Crusader. Those 3 are probably the top 3 solo, with Necromancer taking the cake. I don't know how this is all balancing out on the PTRs right now, because season also started, so it's kind of hard to gather all of that information because people do tend to get pigeonholed, especially on North American server, into running one build because they see that build as exceptionally good, even though other builds might not have been tested fully enough to fully grasp their own capabilities, especially when it comes to group play, that sort of thing. I think this PTR definitely needs a lot more testing. For instance, I've been testing Tempest Rush quite a bit, and I think that in order for builds such as Tempest Rush to survive in this upcoming patch, it needs a few additions as well. Something like a damage mitigator as part of one of those legendary pieces that is associated with the build, because it definitely takes a ton of damage. Samuko's not all that great at soaking up damage. LTK's pretty decent because you're dealing a massive amount of damage, and something like Wave of Light, you are a ranged caster, so you don't really have to worry so much about soaking up that damage. And Sunwoko's, even though it offers that 50%, the amount of gear that you use for Tempest Rush doesn't allow you a lot of space to add more damage mitigators. And to top it off, Tempest Rush still needs a little bit more on the damage side as well. So you struggle dealing enough damage to kill stuff fast enough, and you don't take hits very well with the build. I think that they definitely improved it for Tempest Rush, but they need to take a look at that sort of thing. Damage mitigators as well. I know they did with the Band of Might and Halo of Karini for the Wizard, stuff like that, and they added a new damage mitigator for Jade Harvester. I'd like to see one added for the Tempest Rush build, and then you could really test and see how far this build can go. So I think for a true balance with what they are doing, and this is definitely what I believe they are doing, you still need to do a little bit more tweaking, and that means testing, and unfortunately that does mean pushing these builds to its limits. Sometimes people want to keep all that information to themselves, so they'll play with it but not push it as far as it can go because they want to gain an upper hand when actually they could help balance out the game, which is what I'm trying to do on the PTR. I'm trying to push with builds as far as I can go, testing new setups, testing a bunch of different ways to play different builds, different runes, that sort of thing. So it is sucking up a lot of my time, but I want to do that to make sure that I can give feedback on the forums as well, especially when it comes to Monk. That's my favorite class. That is the one that I play the most. Very sorry, guys, if my cold is coming through on this video at some points, so I do apologize for that. One last thing I want to talk about here, guys. Power creep. Now, a lot of people and YouTubers, even YouTubers I respect and that sort of thing, they have a problem with this patch as being power creep. Well, unfortunately, at least in my opinion, this game has needed this sort of power creep for a long time, because I don't consider this to be a power creep when you are buffing up builds that are useless against the current meta. When you are buffing them, 5-6 GRs past them, that's a little bit different without giving them some concessions as well, which is why I'm liking the fact that they are also slightly buffing up those previous meta builds. Like for Monk, they just buffed up Shenlongs to make sure that the generator builds were not just thrown off to the side. They still got a little bit extra as well, so they can push farther, so people can test that, see where it all balances out. But this game has needed a balance for so very long. I personally get sick of running the meta. That's why I end up doing off builds when I play, that sort of thing, because I don't like being as constrained as you are currently in this form of Diablo 3. And thankfully, this patch definitely seems to be opening up those doors, allowing you to do much more with many more different builds than you were able to do before. And that's why I think that if this is power creep, then bring it on, because that is what this game needs. I don't know what else. You can't complain about, this build can't keep up with the rest of the builds, and then when they buff it, go, power creep. That doesn't really make sense, and it invalidates both of your arguments. If you've got a problem with them buffing up invalidated builds and then call it power creep when they do, that's hypocritical, pretty much. And I truly think that this game needs this, and this is what this game has to become now, because I do not expect to see a lot of DLC coming from Blizzard for Diablo 3, at least in the near future. Maybe there'll be another announcement, maybe there'll be one more class before they really go heavy into something like Diablo 4, but I don't see a lot of content being added to this game, and you know what? There doesn't have to be. Because whether you think that your initial purchase of the game warranted more, at this point in time, the game is 5 years old. You're not going to be getting new acts. You're not going to be getting, new areas and new classes all the time. That's not the way this is going to work. And I truly think that the best way to make this game still fun and enjoyable for multiple people across, multiple opinions is to balance different builds. If you can do a 100 GR with more than just one build, that would be great, especially if you can keep all the builds, within 4 or 5 GRs from each other. Then it's going to come down to skill as well, because a very high Paragon person is going to be able to push farther with Ulianas than somebody with low Paragon who is pushing with Wave of Light, even though Wave of Light might be better. You know what I mean? So it's going to boil down to time spent because of the Paragon race that Diablo 3 is, and skill level as well. So I think that the more builds that are brought up to an equal playing field, the better. And that is why I am truly looking forward to this upcoming patch. Unfortunately, it did kind of kill Season 11 a little bit, at least for me, because I immediately switched to PTR mode and trying to play Season 11 too, which allowed me to fall really far behind. I do think that for a lot of people, with this patch being released so early, it just totally killed Season 11. But that is also to be expected, and it's because we are excited for what is coming. I know I personally am very excited for the different types of builds, different play styles that I will be allowed to use come Season 12 when this patch goes live. And I'm truly looking forward to patch 2.6.1. So guys, thank you so very much for checking out this video. I always greatly appreciate it. And make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because I will definitely be bringing you information on upcoming patch notes for this patch 2.6.1 as they go live. And I will work diligently to make sure you guys have that information on a timely basis. Guys, thank you so very much once again, and you have a great night. Peace.